Good morning, everyone, and good afternoon to a handful of USC coming from overseas. Thank you for your time today. We're real excited today to talk about EHRapid Connect and some of the use cases and problems it solves. Joining me today, I have with Sabra George and John Swift. By the way, my name is Patrick Vinton. I'm Chief Technology Officer here at Analytics 8, and I'll be the MC today for this live stream and conversation. Speaking of conversation, we would like to make this conversational if possible. If you want to put anything in the chat, any questions or comments or observations, we'll try to keep up with those in real time. Sabra.
Hi, everyone. My name is Sabra George. I am a senior consultant here at Analytics 8 and a member of the team that helped develop EHRapid Connect. John?
I'm John Swift, a principal consultant here at Analytics 8. I've been circling the data drain for about 3 decades, so I've done a lot of weird things, and one of them was I got to be part of the build on the EHRapid Connect as well.
Super. So before we get into what I hope to be a lively conversation, let's take a step back and remember why we're all here today. What do we see out there? What have we heard from you guys on the live stream today? What we've heard here is that healthcare organizations, they've got a lot of data. There's no shortage of data, but a big common challenge that you guys have told us and that we've seen firsthand in working with you is it's hard to integrate that data with other pieces in your organization, specifically electronic healthcare records. There's a lot of very, very rich information in electronic healthcare records, but often they end up being siloed. Whereas I think everybody here would love to see that information integrated with financial data or claims data or any sort of supply systems or any sort of operational systems. Other thing that's making this complicated, as you guys very well know, you're in a very, very regulated environment, and we're happy about that as patients and as citizens of this world. But it does make our jobs on the data side a little bit difficult at times.
Yeah, so one of the biggest pain points we're also seeing across the board, but especially in the healthcare industry, is kind of the inability to analyze data across siloed data sources. So, different systems have different standardizations and formats that obviously can cause issues when bringing data together for a comprehensive view. This, of course, impacts gathering real-time data about, the critical information such as hospital bed capacity that we saw in prevalent in the pandemic. As well as current and historical patient records, which honestly hinder operational efficiency and patient outcomes from what we've seen.
Sure. And I probably don't have to tell anybody here about it, but the technical challenges. It's hard to get, generally speaking, it's hard to get data to integrate with each other. That can be a challenge. It's especially hard integrating with systems which you have limited control. And then once you have the data, how is it modeled? There's a lot of things that are here that create a variety of technical challenges as well.
Speaking of control, there's a lot of things that are tightly controlled. So the regulations and compliance rules are very stringent, HIPAA obviously, but you've got controlled substances to manage and keep track of. There's a lot of compliance and regulatory challenges that are present in the healthcare space. And the HL7 specifications and the fire standard help kind of lift some of the burden of complexity on the technical challenges, but the risks are real.
Yeah, yeah. So in the face of all of these challenges, what do we see out there? What have we heard from you guys on that are joining us today and maybe watching this recording later? First, that we see surprisingly frequently is people are doing nothing. And it's not actually nothing. Of course, you're doing analytics to run your business, but you're doing it in a more siloed way. You're looking at operational and financial system over here, and maybe even have a data warehouse or data lakehouse where you've figured out how to crack that nut and integrate that system, that data together. But your EHR data is left over here as an orphan. And the extent of the analytics you get is whatever the EHR platform provider provides you out of the box.
Yeah. And another thing that we're seeing is, unfortunately, manual data integration and collection is still widely used in the healthcare industry as, unfortunately, a necessity with those siloed data sources we were talking about. So many of the clients we have worked with, they're still receiving and sending medical data versus via Excel or CSV documents, which is really not only inefficient, but also can be potentially quite insecure depending on how that's set up.
And of course, once you do something manually, you usually end up trying to make some sort of system out of it. So there's a lot of custom workarounds that involve sort of band-aid solutions to fix the challenges that caused you to do the manual integration in the first place. And so you wind up kind of building these giant complex processes that end up being more of a challenge to maintain.
Yeah. And then kind of on the opposite end of the spectrum is what we've seen customers lean into uh, partially out of ignorance is some of the turnkey solutions that are out there. So there's companies that are dedicated to EHR data and EHR systems, and actually all the hyperscalers have them. Azure, GCP, and AWS all have EHR oriented solutions for EHR data. The difference and the challenge with those is they're built for real-time integrations. Those are built to either create your own EHR system or to create extensions to existing EHR systems. And frankly, you don't need all that extra complexity and architecture and maintenance and frankly cost if all, and I'll put in giant air quotes, if all you're trying to do is get the data out and integrate it with the other data in your environment. So overbuilt solutions we see customers using or have tried to use it and have failed. So that brings us to, EHRapid Connect and why did we build it? So EHRapid Connect is an EHR data ingestion solution that is purpose built for data and analytics workloads. In its essence, it's basically a pipe between your EHR system or systems and your data warehouse and data lakehouse. And we'll talk a little bit more about how that works right now.
So on the
Go ahead, John.
Yeah, on the kind of front side of the pipe, on the source side, you have your EHR system, and these are essentially big operational systems that run through vendors like Epic and Oracle, and they stand up the EHR, and all of the patient and provider interaction goes through the EHR itself directly, and then it's sort of in a lockdown state there. So the front side is to connect to that EHR system using the apps, kind of the app environment within those providers. So Epic and Oracle and the others. You have to produce an app on that side. That app has a bunch of settings and security and authentication components that go with that, and a bunch of other kind of manual steps and processes there for the connecting to the healthcare data that's actually stored within the EHR. And then we have to move that over to the tenant cloud.
Got it. Yeah, I'm excited to talk about the right side of the pipe there, but I want to spend a little bit of time kind of poking at some of the things you mentioned. I mean, sounds like there's a whole lot of orchestration, collaboration of people and organizations and a lot of rules and a lot of risk. You want to make sure that you've only got the proper data going through that pipe on the left side. Tell us a little bit about that process and how EHRapid Connect kind of speaks to some of those challenges.
Yeah, one of the things that we're seeing is that the folks that manage an EHR system have an expectation that it's going to take 6 to 9 months or a year to actually get the connection working. So there are steps that have to be done manually from a technical perspective to set up the app and do the connectivity. But on the backside of that, there's also some things within the EHR that have to be set up and configured manually. You have to assign groups of records that you're going to allow. You're going to have to decide on the scope. And by scope, I mean which FHIR resources are going to be accessed through the EHR. So there's a lot of kind of one-time setup that has to be done, and there's a lot of people to coordinate with that. So you've got not just your security team and your network team, but also the team in charge of actually managing the back end of the EHR system.
Got it. So it's super complicated. I mean, what do we have to offer those teams? Because it is certainly a team effort to kind of make sure nobody misses a step and things are done in the right order. Because I've heard horror stories of people never getting past the left side of that pipe, or they get so far down and they say something in the wrong order and they have to start all over. What do we have
Yeah.
there?
Well, the challenge there, it's a great question. The challenge is that most of the documentation, and by most I mean almost all of it, is about creating like an app for your phone, or for the provider to log in and do one record at a time exchange. And what we're actually seeing, for analytics, you can't just pull one record at a time. You don't know the IDs in advance, so you have to build a process around it. So we put together a playbook, and the playbook enables us to kind of run down the checklist of, we've done this security step, we've set up the app this way, we've confirmed a list of resources for this use case that we need to have. We've submit everything correctly to the EHR system provider, that's Epic or Oracle, and we know how long it's going to take for them, roughly, plus or minus, for them to go through their steps and processes on their side, because they're going to validate and make sure that the app we created on their system is valid and meets all the security requirements as well. And so there's a time period there, and then they of course there's billing. They're going to charge for that app because they're gonna make their money too. So there's a whole sequence of things and expectations to be set and managed. But within a few weeks time, if you've got the list, if you got the run book for how to do this, then it's significantly faster than poking around the internet. And I
Got
can
it.
tell you one thing I can tell you, Patrick, is funny. The AI is no help, because what happens, because there's nothing out there on the internet that's really simple and clear about how to do it. You ask AI, and AI is like, "Oh yeah, do this thing," and that's not how. No, it just doesn't work. It's
Got it.
completely hallucinatory. Yeah.
Got it. So what I'm hearing, just taking a step back, a couple things. One is we've got a paint by number set a document, and it tells everybody who needs to do what in what order and the time expectations of everybody. So from your technical team to your EHR system provider towards us or anybody who's propping up our app, propping up the app on our side, everybody knows what to do. There's this careful ballet. Am I right so far?
Yeah, absolutely.
Got it.
Absolutely.
And the other thing is, as I mentioned earlier, we're talking about systems that were built for a different use case, and I talked about some of those overcomplicated solutions for these workloads. It seems that the EHR vendors and all the documentation is geared towards those overcomplicated systems. So what we've been able to do is figure out how to shortcut that and not only make it prescriptive and everybody knows what to do and when. We've been actually able to compress the timeline from 9 to 12 months down to a matter of weeks. And I think that's a big thing here, why the rapid in the name is so important.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. The time frame compression is really probably the biggest piece. I mean, can you eventually get there? Sure. But isn't it nice to get there fast? That's why we have planes instead of trains.
Cool. All right. So we talked a lot about the left side of the pipe, and I mean, it's an important one. It's less technical, more administrative, but as we've discussed, the administrivia is super important and can really stretch out your delivery time. On the right side is the more technical part of the solution. And this is the code that runs within your tenant that does the things that actually pulls the data down, that talks to the EHR system side app and says, this is the data I need, and it lands it in either your data warehouse or your data lakehouse. This app runs in all of the 3 major hyperscalers, as well as on Databricks natively. And I want to say that again real slowly, because this is really important. It runs within your hyperscaler or Databricks tenant. So what that means is that all of the data processing in the ingress and the egress, the data always is within your tenant, whether it's your EHR tenant or your cloud tenant or your Databricks tenant, whatever it is. So this puts us in a situation where we are compliant to all of the standards, all of the millions of standards that are out there.
And I think it's important to note here as well, like just to add on to that, Patrick, that when it's landing in the cloud tenant, of course, it's following all the best practices of securing the data with uh, all of the necessary networking and the big one is encryption, right? So making sure the data is encrypted as it's coming out of the EHR system and then landing it and storing it in encrypted fashion so that all that PHI is protected.
Perfect. Perfect. Thanks for the clarification. So in summary, right-sized architecture. Hopefully we've made that clear by now. There's not any bloat to that matter. And the vast majority of this is serverless. And anybody who knows me knows I love anything serverless. It means less things to babysit. Costs are more constrained. Yeah, right-sized architecture built for data and analytics workloads. The system-specific playbooks that John mentioned, and that's basically open. How do you configure that left side of the pipe to make sure everything's done correctly? Compliant data transfer, which is what John mentioned just a second ago. And then ultimately, part of the reason we're getting here, and I can see Sabra talking with bated, sitting over there with bated breath, is this unified data ecosystem. And once we get all this data landed, what the heck do we do with it?
Yeah. So obviously the whole main part of creating this is to get data to the place where it can be used by front end individuals or anybody obviously in the healthcare system. So one of the main places where you're going to use that is obviously for operational performance, such as, right, like getting data on staffing levels, healthcare providers, improving the utilization of medical equipment and facilities. One of the things that we saw was a huge piece on wasted medication, or where was that medication being thrown away or put, et cetera, or tracking who is using that medication. So it can be really useful for streamlining administrative processes and things like that. Obviously, it's going to support patient outcomes. You're going to have a whole lot of historical patient data, and you can utilize that to help your healthcare providers, support their work with their patients. And obviously, it helps regulatory reporting, right? So all that necessary information that you need for regulatory reporting can be easily pulled from this solution so that you can comply with any sort of government mandates or support looking at quality metrics. So all of those pieces are going to be in play for you with our solution. Thanks, Patrick.
That's
Very
awesome.
excited.
So those are some of the use cases that I know you've worked on for various customers. It never ceases to amaze me whenever we talk about, even if it's just about EHR data in general, whether or not we're talking about Rapid Connect, it never ceases to amaze me. Every single customer we talk to, they seem to have a novel use case for it. So I'd be curious from the audience if there's other novel use cases you've thought of, like, and every time I think I've heard them all, I hear a new one. Some other ones that I wouldn't expect. We have a couple customers actually that deal in staffing, and how would they use this data? And they can use this data to kind of look forward and uh, do kind of predictive, where is the need going to be? And they can also look backwards. They can look at their staffing system and overlay that with data, and they can look at patient interactivity and like wait times and stuff like that. And they can say, hey, were our predictions right? We've seen research companies that would say, oh, we'd love to look at this. We'd love to see, when a physician made a specific recommendation for treatment. Why did they do that treatment versus this one? And maybe there was a misdiagnosis over there. And what can we do to educate the physicians? Or again, going back to the staffing, do we see any patterns there? So those are a few more. I know, John, I think you've heard of a few others with some of your customers as well.
Yeah. So one of the conversations that I've had recently was around outcomes that are different by different devices, right? So device manufacturers, you're making knees or hips or whatever the implant, if you have a heart, little heart valve replacement device, right? Any number of things. It's useful to be able to aggregate all the data and connect it from the different, like your supply chain isn't going to go through your EHR, right? So you're getting these pieces of equipment, you're getting different sourcing for all the different supplies at a medical facility, and you want to know, do I have a better outcome on this one or that one? And they also want to know that. So if you think about monetization of your data, now you can actually sell that information, the aggregate information, not obviously the PHI, but you aggregate it and say, well, for this device, we have this set of outcomes, and for this other device, we have this set of outcomes, and you can sell that information back to the manufacturers who are really in a hurry to know how to improve their devices. So um, there's a lot of ways, same thing in the medicine space, right? If you're having adverse reactions with certain medications, you can see patterns when you collect it all together, especially if you have diverse systems. And with consolidations, for example, there's another one. A lot of hospital systems are consolidating. Smaller hospitals are getting kind of combined, purchased up by the larger systems. And
Mhm.
now you have multiple EHRs that you have to plug together, and it may not even just be a matter of sharing the data between them, which is a separate issue, but when you collect it all together, you can capture all those high level insights.
Yeah.
And when you talk about like an epidemic, something that happens, you have an
Yep.
outbreak of an illness, um, knowing that from multiple EHR systems, you can collect that together, you can start to see patterns in the data that you can't see when it's all isolated.
Yep. 100%.
So I do want to go back to the data monetization and sharing the data back and forth, but I think there was a couple things you mentioned, and it's related to a question that came in. Um, there was actually a couple of questions that came in that are closely related. Had to do with like having multiple EHR systems, different flavors of EHR systems. And then there was another one like, well, tell us more about how it works. Yes, we understand it's code. So let's actually kind of start there and work our way up. So we just kind of glossed by it earlier. There was like a little thing in there that said FHIR, FHIR. How about let's start there. John, can you explain what FHIR is? And then we'll kind of build up from there.
Yes, Fire is not just that nifty tool that heats up our dinner. It's fast healthcare interoperability resource, and so the resources are divided. The HL7 organization defines what all of the data model is going to look like. So they have specified which fields, which information are going to flow into the Fire specification. And the Fire interoperability component of that is being able to know that when you go ask for data, it's going to come in a reliable, consistent format. Now, anyone who's played with data knows just because the model matches doesn't mean the data inside the model perfectly matches. So there's still engineering to do after you get multiple systems together, because the same field name may or may not have the same sets of values. So there is some variability in what comes in terms of the specific data in each field, but the structure of it is the same. And that consistency is what makes it possible to share data and to do it fast with healthcare data and be interoperable on specific resources. That's FHIR.
Got it. So the resources, let me make sure I understand. The resources, that's if we're just putting our data hats on here, that's what consists, once the data is landed, it's all going to have the same structure. So
Yep.
whether or not you're pulling from Epic or from Oracle, Cerner, or from Athena, structurally, once it lands, it's going to be in a similar format.
Yep. The
Cool.
schemas match. That's the point.
Got it. But I think if FHIR is also the data transmission standard, and what is the way to exchange information, how it's encrypted, and the format of the messaging and all that stuff. That's all part of the standard as well.
Yeah, yeah. So the API specification, when we were putting this together, we discovered it's a little bit weird. It's not the typical one, which is actually kind of good. It's your healthcare data. You don't want that to just be easy. So yeah, it's like a 7-step back and forth communication, passing keys back and forth to authenticate. And that process is defined by HL7 as a specification. And then the implementation of that is a little bit different for each provider, but the basic set of steps is functionally the same. So there's
Got it.
there's a few nuances in it.
Got it. So that's how we can confidently say Rapid Connect, if we think of it as a platform or this pipe can connect to
Yeah.
anything that's fire compliant. If there's one we haven't worked with before, there may be a little bit that we have to figure out on the playbook side, or there may be a little bit in the way we authenticate. But all the steps are the same, the transmission is the same, and the way the data lands is the same.
Exactly.
So
Exactly.
there was a question about who is fire compliant out there. I know we keep saying Oracle, Cerner, and Epic. Who else is out there? Either one of you guys.
Yeah, I mean everybody is really.
Yeah, like
Anybody who's going to be able to collect or send and receive data for healthcare is fire compliant. This is not a new standard, right? It's been out for over a decade. Um, the goal was to have everybody running on it full speed, almost a decade ago. So they keep kicking the can on enforcing the regulation and saying everybody must communicate using the fire pipes because there is a workaround and it's manual and it's tedious and it's expensive. You're passing flat files and SFTP sites and
yeah.
ingesting flat files. It's not pretty, but the standard's not new, so everybody's compliant with it.
Yeah. I was actually I recognized the person here in the participant list. I was on a call with them. So yeah, this sounds cool, but I've got this really small kind of mom and pop EHR provider. I wish it was more. I wish I had Epic so I could use your thing. And I said, well, let's check it out. And we just Googled it in real time together. And I said, hey, look, man, your mom and pop EHR platform is also fire compliant. Let's go. I think there was somebody I saw, I don't recognize the name, that somebody that was a registrant was actually with a veterinarian clinic. Are they also fire compliant, their systems typically?
Yeah, HL7 does have a vet specification. It's not the same. It has fewer resources. I think there's like 160 or something specific resources that are defined in Epic. There are some more in the HL7 spec, but of course each EHR has to individually build those APIs on their side so that they're compliant, right? So there's work to be done on their side to add additional resources, but there is a separate specification for veterinarians, for vet clinics, and there is a slightly smaller list of compliant records that can pass, but in the vet space, they are also doing that.
Got it. Cool. That kind of brings us to another question that was asked. Let's talk about organizations that have multiple EHR systems, because maybe it's due to inorganic growth. We see a lot of private equity, for example, that's kind of creating these families of clinics and hospitals, or we see them doing that on their own. So let's talk about that situation. And actually, one of our customers, I think, was in a similar situation. One of you like to talk about that, where customers have multiple EHR systems?
Yeah, go ahead, Sabra.
Yeah, well, our client at the time definitely had a lot of those and pretty disparate systems. There was a lot of those pain points that we talked about earlier, sending information from those systems with flat files, so they weren't really able to connect, as well as some other third-party systems that they wanted to bring in with their data to be able to see kind of a total view on that. And I think this is one of those examples where we actually successfully brought in the EHRapid Connect on the implementation side on that, John, if you want to explain a little bit more on bringing those together.
Yeah, so in part of that challenge is you've got to connect to multiple different systems, and you don't want to have 7 different tools to do 7 different connections. So it's great to have one, like the way this is set up, it allows for the one system to cycle through or to, I guess, be assigned the task of connecting individually. And so you can manage through multiple parallel workflows. You can have different types of cadence for the bulk connection, whether it's every hour or every day or twice a day, whatever makes sense. And on the technical side, there's pros and cons for longer or shorter increments, but ultimately the goal was to make this work in a way that was sort of ubiquitous and would allow you to do whichever connection to whichever EHR
Yeah.
work independently and using one code base. So that's the real trick, is not having 27 versions of the same job doing different tweaks.
Yeah, it could be the same one bringing it all from
Right.
the different systems that this client had, which was a lot. And it was really awesome to see it all work. Truly, truly an amazing project, in my opinion.
Very cool. So the questions are kind of slowing down coming in. I think we've been able to integrate them in real time. Just as we start to kind of wind down, please feel free to ask questions if you want to ask privately. Believe you can ask just the host and panelists if you want to remain anonymous,
Yep.
anonymous-ish. So I think see if anything else comes in here pretty soon.
Yeah, so I think we're gonna send out this as also as a recording, Patrick. So y'all can share with your network or your colleagues, take a peek, take a look, let us know what you think. And also feel free to connect with us directly. You can find us all on LinkedIn. Yeah.
Very good. I think yeah, we're putting LinkedIn there in the chat. Feel free to reach out there. If any questions you have, or you'd like to talk more, we're more than happy. And of course, we continue to put out quite a bit of content, not just related to healthcare, but to data analytics directly. If you'd like to be part of our newsletter, I think those are pretty informational. People seem to love that content. So thank you, everybody, for your time. Thank you, Sabra. Thank you, John.
Thanks,
Have a
Patrick.
great day. Thanks for your time.
Have a good one. Thank you, everyone.